Hello, welcome to part 1 of Rails API plus React Fullstack series. So this video can be seen independent of any other videos in this series. So yeah, it should be helpful for everyone. And what I'm thinking is that we have to write the code for React as well as Rails, right? So starting with this series, I'll start working on the Rails API part. We will do a couple of videos in that. Then we'll shift towards React. We'll do a couple of videos in that, and then eventually the videos might have Rails and React in same video itself. So yeah, it should be easier for anyone to understand. So let's start. And why is there not any second list? Okay, so what all things we'll cover in this? Let me get rid of these things. And okay, so we'll first set up the project. Rails API project setup. We'll do this one first, then we'll generate challenge model. So I've already given you an overview in my previous video, which is sort of a teaser for what we will be doing. It's a challenge based website where I will be posting challenges and users will be posting their solutions. Decide various models. We'll have to decide various models in our project, then generate challenge model, write APIs for challenge model, use these APIs in Postman. Okay, so basically we'll follow this simple script. We'll set up the project, we'll see what all database related things we need in our project, then we'll generate challenge model, basically create database, start creating database, and finally we'll write APIs for that challenge. APIs meaning we can add the challenge, destroy, update, all those kind of things, and we'll finally test them in Postman. So let's start. I will be assuming that you know basics of React and Rails. If you don't, you can have a look at my other videos. But even if you don't know them, and if you have good experience, you are confident that any technology is easy to understand, then also you can follow this series, because I'll be explaining a lot of the things. But if something goes in very depth, I'll refrain from going in depth, because I don't want to make this series just by focusing on Rails or on React. I want a collaboration of that, right? So let's start. I have installed VS Code already, and I'll open my terminal. Let's go to CD, desktop, YouTube, code. Now in this, I'll create a folder. Okay, generally we create a project, and in that we go to that. I'll create a folder, name it as code challenges. CD code challenges. Okay, now in this we will have two different projects. One will be the backend, and second one will be the front end. That's how I will name them. So let's start doing that. I'll write down for creating Rails API only project. Let's do that. Rails new backend. I'll explain this entire thing. First focus on understanding this. Dash API, sorry, not py, API, then dash d equals to PostgreSQL, and dash d also. Yeah, so let me explain you this entire syntax that I have written. Command Rails new will help us creating a new Rails related project. The name of that project will be backend. Now Rails is a full stack framework, but we can use this just to create backend, which is the APIs part and managing the database part. So for that, if you want just the backend and not the front end part, you can use dash API flag. Dash T is basically, we don't want any test cases in that, because again this is a very basic introduction related series. And dash D equals to PostgreSQL is the default database that we'll be using is PostgreSQL. Otherwise, if we don't mention it, it would have been SQL or SQLite, I think, yes. And dash D will be, if we hadn't mentioned this one, it would have been like the project will have test cases. If we don't mention it, it will be a full stack project. I hope you have understood this. So let's do this. CD backend. Okay. Now in terminal, I am in backend folder, but in my VS Code, I will open the code challenges project. YouTube code challenges. I am not opening the backend. I am opening this, because later on we will have front end part also, which will come here. Okay, let me close all these things. let's go to backend, and I just want to show you one thing. By the way, if you know Rails uses the MVC framework. Now in views, if you would have created default project, full stack project, not just the API only project, in that case you would have find a application.html.erb file, which is similar to what we get index.html file in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or in React, or in any other web development project. But this is API only project, and that's why we don't have it. And we still have these two views because our backend will have the capability to send emails. Now emails are just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, those kind of things, right? So for that we have these template files. Okay, otherwise this project won't have any front-end related thing in Rails. Okay, and if we go to our config, I'm just showing you some changes with respect to the full stack project. If we go to application.rb file, in that you can see config API only true, which means that this is an API only project. Okay, let me check the database. It's PostgreSQL only, so that's also great. Now let's close this. Great. So now let's focus on the database part. For that, I'll open up Chrome. Let's go to TLDraw. Now if you remember from demo, in that, or if you remember my April month challenge, I was posting challenges. I want users to submit solution for that, take participation in that. I will score those submissions, and finally we'll have winners and all those kind of things, right? So let's start focusing on this. There will be users. Users will have profiles. Okay, these are all the table names that I'm creating. Okay, then there will be challenges, and there will be participants. So users can participate in a particular challenge. That doesn't mean that they are submitting the solution, they are just participating in it. Finally, they will submit the solution, so submissions. And finally, I will do the evaluation, so evaluations table. What else? What else? Winners should come from evaluations directly. Anything else that I'm missing? For now, I think it's fine. Now I don't want to focus on anything else. I just want to focus on challenges right now, because that is the core central thing that we have. In users, we'll be doing some much more complex things, so I want to take that difficulty in next couple of videos. Right now I want to keep it easy, so I'll start with challenges. What all things will challenges have? Title, description, whatever it is, I'll fix that. Start date, like when will this challenge start, and end date, when will this challenge end. These four information will definitely be part of the challenges. Okay, so let's start working towards that. And for that, I'll again close this, go to terminal, Rails generate. For generate we just use G, Rails generate model challenge, and we need title, which should be a string. We need description, which should be a text. The difference between a string and text is basically a string is a bit small, as well as it has very specific things that it can allow. A text can be anything, and it is usually a really long thing. My differentiation is very simple. If I'm using something long, I would prefer text, and for shorter things, a string. Okay, start date, date, end date, date. Okay, yeah, and for this is the column name, this is the data type, this is the column name, data type, column name, data type. That's how it works. Okay, so as soon as I do this, it will generate two files for us. One is this database migration, second is the model. So let's have a look at the database migration first. Okay, it has a timestamp, so 2024-05, which is May 5th month, which is May, 09, which is the current date, and then followed by the timestamp. Okay, not exactly timestamp, but hour, minute, second, that kind of thing. Okay, so it has a string, text, date, and all. I'll write null, false. We don't want them to be null. All of these should be present. Okay, And anything else, we haven't done the migration, so it is not in part of the database yet. It's just that we want to do this migration. So let's do this migration actually. Rails db migrate. Challenges already exists. How is that possible? App models challenge, yes. I think there is some issue. Let me drop if something from previous code is working. Rails db create, Rails db migrate. And now let's have a look at schema, and it is working. So you notice this error. The error is somewhat local to my PC only. What is happening is that whatever database that I have used in my previous project, okay, that database somehow gets used in the next project also. I don't know how it is happening, but it is happening. Something weird is happening. So I just dropped the database and it works. In your case, it should have worked directly. Let's clear this, or everything is clear. These are not errors, these are just Robocop related warnings that we can use single quotes and all those things. We won't go in depth of it, we don't want to do those things. If there will be error, we will know specifically. Okay? Again, this is not an error, this is just a they want us to add frozen string literal at the top and those kind of things. I don't want to go in that section right now. And in model also we will have to validate things. Validate in Rails, yes. This. So basically in model also we are validating that title is present, description is present, then start date is present, and finally end date is present. Okay. Anything else should I do? I think not. Let's start the server. Obviously it won't do anything, but let's do this anyway. You can still visit this website if you want to. Okay, but it's just an API only project, so we won't be visiting this at least not from here. Okay, now let's start thinking towards the database part of it, APIs part of it. Let's exit this, or should I not exit this? Let's keep it right now. Now let's start understanding the routes part. Okay, so config routes. For APIs, we need different paths, right? APIs can be of post, put, destroy, get, those kind of APIs are there, right? Normally, I'm assuming that you know basics of APIs. So for a challenge, we need that we can view all challenges, we can view a specific challenge, we can add challenges, we can update them, we can destroy them. All those things we will need, right? So in Rails, for doing that, you need to mention the path for that APIs, right? For example, in our case, I want our path to be, let me make a comment. I want our path to be API/v1/challenges to get all the challenges, to post challenges, or challenges/:id, which will give us a specific challenge that we want. But the main key point is I want it to be like this. Why? Because API clearly shows that, okay, this URL, if anyone sees it, a bit experienced developer sees it, they will know that, okay, this is just an API related URL. So it will give us a JSON and not an HTML page or anything, right? V1 to maintain the versions of the APIs. For example, this same API, I might change the content of the challenge table, which means this API will change, but someone might be using our previous APIs, right? So in that case, what I would do in future, for example, if the core API changes, I would change this version to V2. Okay, if someone is still using my old version, they can use it. If someone is still using my new version, they can use it. Okay, so this is basically version management in APIs, and it's a really good practice to do that. That's what sets an experienced developer apart from junior developers. Okay, so creating all these APIs is a bit easier. I can create a namespace for API because we know all our APIs will live in this namespace, right? And all our APIs will also live under v1 for now. Okay, for now meaning that if something updates, then we will have namespace v2 do and those kind of things also, but right now it will just be v1. And in that I can mention resources, challenges, and just look what we'll get from this. Rails, we can see all the routes. Okay, so how can you know that? You can use Rails followed by this file name, which is routes. If you use just this command, you will get all the routes that Rails provides, but this will have our APIs that we have created. Along with that, it will have a lot of other APIs also. So how can you filter that? If you will notice this, it has challenges word in this. Now that is part of controllers. Mostly this command should fail, which I'll write now, but it means -c is controller. I want to use controller, which is challenges. So it will show me all the APIs of challenges only. And all of them are working, that's great. Controller is API v1 challenges followed by hash action, which is definition. So you can see that we haven't mentioned all those things, but this resources is that much powerful that it will generate all the APIs for us. Okay, and now if you want to use any of these APIs, we can just copy these path. Okay, and it will work. So using these, we can create new challenge, show a particular challenge, update, destroy, all those things we can do. Now we will have to create a controller to actually control these APIs. So for that, what is the path? API v1 challenges, right? So let's create a folder, API. In that, create a folder v1, and in that create a file challenges underscore controller. Okay, so whatever this name is followed by underscore controller. Okay, and we'll have to mention it here also. Module is API, module is v1, capital V1. I think this should work. And finally class controllers, sorry, not controllers. I know I'm going in too much depth, and for our current audience it might be like I'm repeating things, but I don't know if someone might need this knowledge actually. Challenges controller. Okay, so it inherits properties from application controller. It is giving error warning, which we don't care about right now. Again, checking this, and all the APIs are there, but it mentions all the functions, definitions, actions that we have to do, right? So let's start creating them. Definition index and definition create and definition show. And by the way, do let me know in comments that if you like this much depth in my videos or not, or if I give much more detailed information, because I don't know what all experience my viewers are from. Okay, and we have created these functions. In these, now we can control this code. How can we control this? Let me show you one example. Let me clear this. We'll go to Rails console. Rails console allow us to interact with our database and models. Okay, so try to understand the concepts here clearly. We'll be interacting with the database, and whatever code we write here, we'll try to replicate it here. Okay, so let's pick the very simple example. I want to get all the challenges that we have. Currently we don't have any challenges, but we will still write this code. Challenge dot all. You can see it is giving us empty array. Okay, Now we'll add a challenge. For adding a challenge, we have to create it, right? There is a simpler way of doing it, but the method that I will be following will be similar to what code we'll be writing in these functions, right? So I'll create a variable challenge and I'll set the value as challenge dot new. What all things does this challenge accept? Title, lorem ipsum, followed by description, which will be random description, followed by start date. Now finally, whatever we are writing here, it's a Ruby code itself, right? So we can use Ruby related classes also. Date dot today, comma, and date, which will be date dot today plus 15 dot days. Yes, 15 days. We'll close this and enter. An object has been created. Mind you, it is just an object. It has not been saved to database yet. For example, if I do challenge.all, there is no entry in database, but we do have an object which is challenge. So now I can still access this challenge because it's part of the same instance. You can see this is a challenge. Okay, it's just an object. Again repeating, it's just an object. It is not the part of database, but I can save it. Dot save. Enter, and now you can see transaction begins. Transactions are part of database, so transaction is begun. What does this say? Challenge create, which took 2 milliseconds. Why? It's way too much. Insert into challenges, title, description, start date, end date, created at, updated at. These two values it will add automatically. Timestamps related things Rails manages automatically, so it's an advantage. The values for these here, all the values from here, and finally transaction committed, and it was successful, right? Now if I use challenge.all, you can see first transaction has been provided. Okay, first challenge has been provided. So now to get all the challenges, what are we using? Challenge.all. So we'll use this in our APIs. Let's see. But before I go into depth of that, let me show you what all these functions, actions, definition, whatever you call it, will do for us. Destroy will delete single challenge. Okay, it should say, delete one specific challenge, right? Update single challenge. Show single challenge. This will create single challenge. Just right now we have created a one specific challenge. It's similar to this only. Show all challenges. Okay, so that's what the difference between index and show is. Okay, it will show all the challenges. To make it a bit easier to understand, think of it as a book. Book has an index. Index, what does index have? Index have a list of all the chapters, right? If you take book as an analogy. So index is basically index of all the challenges. So it will show all the challenges to us. So what is the code to show all the challenges? We just wrote it, challenge.all. But we'll save it somewhere. So I'll use challenges instance variable. @ make sure that it's an instance variable. I have a 2-hour Ruby course also, so you can go in depth of that to understand these things. But basically it's an instance variable. You can, I'm saying these words because you can just pause this video, Google search instance variable in Ruby, and you can understand from that. Okay. Now we have to return them as JSON data. So if you know any API that we call, the most general convention is to return them as JSON data. You can have proctor data also, proc using proc. Yeah, it's proc only. So you can use proctor data also. You can even render an HTML, entire HTML thing you can return, but we'll return JSON because we are working with APIs. So for that, I'll use render JSON. I'm a bit confused about this code. Render JSON in Rails. Yes, that's what it is. Okay, and this instance variable, great. Not a space, @challenge. So now if we call this particular API, it should return us a JSON of all the challenges. So let's have a look at this. For that, let me open another tab in my backend folder itself. Let's go to Rails routes -c controller, sorry, not controller, challenges. Index, what is the path for index? This one. And what is it? Get. So I'll mention it here. Hash get this. I'll do this for all actually. Create challenges post. Fetch or put challenges ID. Challenges ID. It should be a challenge, single challenge, yes. Wait, challenges. Finally for show, what is for show? Here, this is the path. I'm writing it here because that way it becomes easier to understand things. You don't have to go through routes every time to see what all APIs you have to call, right? It should be delete, patch or put, show will have a get. First time it will take some efforts, but I just want to go in very depth. I'm a bit scared like this video might get really long, but let's do this anyway. Okay, now what do we have to do? We have to use this API. Okay, for using this API, make sure that the server is running, our server is running on port this 3000. So I'll use Postman. You can download it and install it locally. Okay, you will have to sign in and all those processes you will have to do. What was the path? This, right? Let's go to Postman, dismiss, let's create new this. Now from here you will have to select get, post, patch, put, delete, all those things which we just wrote right now, right? But for index we have get only, and it will give us, it should be challenges. Let me cross check that from here, and it should be challenges, yes. So we can call this API here, and let's try to send this. Okay, it will work only if our server is running. Let's send. You can see we got the data, right? So to make it a bit more easier for us to understand, you can also see this here. It is exactly same as what we do in browser, but it will work only for, let me do this. You can see we are getting the data. Okay, this is the same data that we wrote, but we won't be using browser for these things. We'll use Postman only because that's the correct way to do this. Let's add another data here, but for that what we'll do is we'll do it in a bit different way. We'll do it via an API. Can I name this? Request, no, I cannot name this. Bad. Or maybe from here. No, no worries. I'll close this one, we don't need this. I'll exit this for now. I just want to clean up a bit of things. And do we need the browser? I don't think so. So let's close this. Now let's create. So if you remember from our code, what we did was we wrote something like this: challenge is equals to challenge.new. This is same as what we did in our Rails console. Title something like Rajat Talesra. For now I'm just writing it. Description, hello description. Start date, this will be date dot today. End date, this will be date dot tomorrow. Okay, now I'll just break this in multiple lines just for your visibility, otherwise it's not the best way to break this. You don't have to do this right now, I'm just explaining you something here. Okay, now we have this new challenge model. It has not been saved to our database. How can we save this? We can save it using challenge.save. What will it return? It will return us true or false. Okay, because making a transaction to the database might fail sometime. Okay, so if it is true, that means it was successful, else it was not successful, right? I hope that is clear. So in that case, what we can do is render JSON. We will create an object. We will write status 200 because it was successful for us, or maybe I won't include status for now. I'll write message challenge added successfully. Okay, and also I'll add this challenge, whichever challenge we have created, the object of this challenge, right? Similar to this, in else case, we'll write failed to add challenge. And what should we add here? We can add challenge dot errors. So whatever errors we'll get, we can catch it here. Okay, it is giving error for too many lines, so for that I'll do one simple thing. I'll just break it into one single line again. I hope by now you would have seen it. If not, you can pause it anywhere and you can see this. A line is too long, that's fine. Okay, so you can see the data that we are adding is static data. We will add dynamic data also, but for now let's go with this. So what is the API? API is this. Let's go to Postman, create a new. Here I'll have to change it to post because we are posting data, right? Post. And we'll take this complete URL. Now notice here that the same URL can be for post as well as get. Okay, do I have to mention anything here? I don't think so, because we are, even if we mention anything, we are not using it here, right? But you can see one power of it, puts. These are just debugging techniques. You can follow your own techniques, params. And I'll write title, my new title, or I will also write description, my new description. Everything else I won't write. Okay, and let me go to console. This I'll just break this a bit so that the response is clearly visible to you, and let's hope that it works. Send, and you can see we wrote message challenge data, challenge added successfully, message challenge added successfully. It was a JSON object, so you can see this is a JSON object, right? In data we have mentioned this, in data we have mentioned this. Okay, now if we have a look at here, we gave all the space. RRR is something that I wrote in inputs. In this we can see title, my new title, description, my new description. These are the things that we sent from here. So now if we can print them in our terminal, then we can access it using params. It's all, both of these are part of params, right? So we can access it using params, and if we can access it using params, we can save it here, okay, or put those values here. If we can put those values here, we don't have to use this static data, we can make it dynamic, right? So I'll do it in a bit cleaner way, or for now, yeah, let's do it in a bit cleaner way. We will have to permit those data. So for that, permit params in Rails key. I think this one should be correct. Rails API only project. By the way, I'll be using a lot of Google search, as well as at some point we might even use ChatGPT. So I'm not that kind of developer who won't do those things. I feel that you should know all these things and you should keep on using these tools. This one, right? So they have a group class, we have a challenge class, and we can permit it using this. So I'll just copy this from here. Let's go here, create a private method, private. Whatever functions that I write below this, all these will be private by default. This is the normal convention that we follow, challenges params. Okay, let me paste this entire code here. Okay, now from start you know that we had printed, or we have put our challenges part. Let me, okay, so this params, in params we require challenge. Okay, the model should be of challenge, and what all things will permit? Will permit title, will permit description, will permit start date. Everything else will get neglected basically. Okay, yeah, so now let's use this challenge params directly here. Now what it means is that, okay, whatever we will write in our Postman, all those things will get mapped to title, description, start date, end date in here, which will again get wrapped in our challenges params, which will again get set to our challenge model. It will get saved to our database and will give us successful response. So let's try this. Again, adding some blank lines. I know that I'm going in too much depth, but that's what it is. Okay, challenges. What I will do is I'll write title, new title, and I'll just send this. Should it work or should it not? It should not, right? 400, bad request. Okay, so why is it a bad request? Param is missing the values. Value is empty, challenge. Okay, basically what we'll do is we'll follow this body raw. We'll use challenge. Maybe it should not be like this. Yes, sorry. I'm a bit confused here. Let me try it out a couple of things and then I can show it to you clearly. Because I know one of the solutions is to not use this permit required challenge, but I actually want to use it. So because it will help us a lot in our front end part. Property keys must be quoted. Okay, double quoted. Value expected, value should be double quoted, I think. And let me write it as description, DSCRIP. Okay, I just realized that the text size might be too small. Okay, so this basically means that challenge will get permitted here. It should have a challenge, and from that we'll get all these values. So instead of 400, we should get a better error here. Let's send this. Failed to add challenge. That's what we wrote here, right? failed to add challenge. What are the errors? Challenge.errors. What are the errors? Start date can't be blank, end date can't be blank. We have mentioned this in our database using these things. What is it? Config initializers, not initializers, sorry, not in config database. Here we have mentioned that these two cannot be blanked, and also in models we have mentioned that we do need presence of start date and end date also. So let's just fix it. It should not be a big problem now. Start date this one I am a bit worried. Let me try it out, or maybe let's just Google search it. Date in JSON body for Postman. Okay, we can just mention this kind of date, or we can mention some sort of an object. Let's mention this kind of date. Not sure if it will work or not, but if we'll get any error, we'll see that. Okay. Okay, great. Now let's send this, and successfully added this. All the dates are there. Start date. Okay, it did take the information correctly, so it worked on its own. That's great. Let's close this, and again go to our this get API. Let me reduce the size a bit. And earlier we were getting one single response, send, and we'll get 3 responses. Why? Because we had added this 3 times, right? So I hope you have understood a lot. We have crossed 41 minutes, but we have few more APIs to deal with. So let's deal with them. I'll do this a bit quickly, and we will optimize these APIs in next video. Right now I'll just finish them all. Okay, so in get we will have to get a particular challenge, right? So, and the ID for that challenge will be here, right? So challenge dot find, all these are part of params, right? So params challenge ID, challenge is equals to this, render if challenge. What if we don't find this challenge, right? If we find this challenge, we will render it. These messages are just for me, we might not use it in front end. And if we don't find this challenge, challenge not found. Okay, earlier part was a bit difficult, we were doing it for the first time. Now it will all be just copy paste, or maybe I can do it a bit more quick. APIs in Rails. Destroy update. Let's take a look at update. Copy, paste. At that group, instead of at that group, what I will have to do is I'll have to find it again from at the params. I'm using this challenge, exactly similar to what we did for show. First we'll have to, if we want to update it, first we will have to find it, right? So at that challenge we are finding it, and then we will update it using whatever params we have got in challenge params. Okay, and we'll return this challenge. Let's use it like this only. Let's make it a bit simple. Okay, finally destroy. So for that also we will have to follow the same convention. First we will have to find it, then we will have to destroy it. If challenge.destroy else end. Again same thing, copy, paste, JSON message, challenge deleted, challenge not found, challenge errors, all things are done. Yes, now we'll optimize this code later on. Let's test these APIs first. So I'll try out update once. Update will use patch output, so let's use patch for that. Let's copy this, paste it. No, let's not copy this, and we'll have to use body raw JSON. What all things does it need? I'm a bit confused because of the ID part of it. Let me check my code. Not sure if it will work or not, but let's try this. There might be a better way of doing it, but I just want to finish this video quickly. And in this I'll write description, CRIP, and I'll write my detailed description. So this is for challenge 1 only. Okay, let's send. Challenge found, my detailed description. Actually it should not be challenge found, it should be challenge updated. Okay, now let's go to our API, which is getAll API. In this you can see the description was random descriptions or something. Let's send it again, and now you can see it has shifted a bit because the timestamp has updated, but the description is my detailed description. So create, update, getAll, all these are working. Let's use getting a single one, which is /1. What is the issue? What's the issue here? Show, we are using challenge ID, right? So let's remove it from here and use it like this. Great, but it's not giving us correct results. Why? Maybe I should just use it challenge ID. Now it is giving us correct results, so that is also working. And finally destroy, so let's do that also. Add new, destroy, delete. Let's copy the URL. For that I'll just copy this entire URL, paste it here, and see challenges/id, which is 1. It needs ID only, and delete. Okay, so let's send this. Challenge deleted, it got deleted successfully. Let's go to our this and see all the challenges again, and in this you can see second one is present, third one is present, first is not present. So you see we have successfully set this, all the things are working. Now let's quickly update this. So for that, now we can see that in create, in show, in update, actually especially in show, update and delete, we are setting challenge again and again, right? So what I'll do is I'll extract that function. Before action, let me have a look at here, that's the best way. Yes, before action set group. Before action set challenge for show, update and destroy. So basically we want to call this method before calling show, update or destroy. And let's create this method. Why is this not correct? Do not use space inside this. Okay, let's use set challenge. It's a private method again. Now we are just optimizing, so if you don't understand this because you don't have experience with Ruby, it's completely fine. Add the challenge, similar to what we have here, this, right? So now we can use this everyone. We don't have to use this. We can use this instance variable. we don't have to use this. I made that mistake purposefully at the start because I knew that otherwise it can, if you don't know why you are doing something, it becomes, it is not that interesting basically. Okay, so I wrote a bit unoptimized code first and then optimizing it makes sense. Okay, so now our code is a bit much more focused. It automatically sets the challenge for us and then we can just follow all the details, and they are permitting it, we are also permitting it, so we are following the coding conventions that they have mentioned and it's working out for us. Okay, that's it for this video. In next one I'll see what we can do, but this was the basic introduction of how Rails APIs work. This doesn't work with authentication part right now, so in next video I think I'll focus on authentication. I'll use device and JWT authentication for that. That's it. Do let me know if this has gone in too much depth or it's boring. I know for some experienced developers it might be boring, but that's what it is right now. I just want to give whatever best knowledge I have. That's it. Do let me know, comment down below, share it with your friends, subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye.